proportions, you know, he's really nice, nicely built, long-legged, very good, very balanced proportions kind of horse. He really comes across that way. He's holding his neck a little bit too up and short right now. And not to say that you had too much weight in the rein, because I like it, you know about the contact scale? Yeah? I mean, I like it if you're just taking a nice medium weight and he's connecting to the rein. I like that, but he's a little bit, if I'm going to pick on anything just to start with, his neck is just to me a little too high. So just putting that out there, see what you do about that. A little bit more energy. There, yeah. Come on, yeah. Let him trot a little bit more. I mean, it looks very obedient, very controllable. So that's a compliment, but maybe he looked just a little too much controlled. Yeah, let him reach a little bit more. Especially if you thought just in front of his withers that you're going to let his neck go a bit more down. Okay. Do you have the impression that in this trot, if you let him just totally to his own devices, that he would go faster? That's what it looks like. So it just looks a little like you don't want to let go of him. So, you know, yeah, so I like this, this makes me feel more, you know, more like his energy is relaxed and that he can trot, that he's in his own balance, good self-carriage, that he will, like, expand out to the boundaries if you let him, that he's not holding himself too carefully within the walls. Good. So that's the flow more like that. Very good. So does this trot feel less organized to you? Does it feel flat and running away? Do you like it?
Feels a little less organized.
Yeah.
But he doesn't feel like he's running away.
Okay. Okay. Because it doesn't look like, yeah, I mean, so to me then the difference is that he was too organized and now he looks more like normal. This is how I want him to be as far as how organized I think he should be. Not so much that he holds just that little bit of power back. You're letting him stretch. And it's not like you have to have him in this frame and in this balance the whole ride. I just want to make sure that underlying more collection, you know that you have this kind of freedom and self-carriage and flow, and that he will, yeah, kind of like release the boundaries a little bit. He doesn't look strung out at all, but just that he will go and kind of stretch it out like that and let his energy, yes, very good. It just looks more supple now. Okay, very good. Okay, let him go to canter. Now and then, just bring him a little straighter in the neck. The right flexion is fine. You just want to, yeah, also see what he's like when he doesn't have the right flexion. Okay. And now, like, I like how much he is in your hand here. If you take the canter and you make it a little, now you slow it down a little bit. Want to see if when you do that, he stays with the same amount of, you know, really being in the rein, but then you can make the strides a little bit shorter and have him come back. Good, come back a little more. Use a little bit more through the outside rein and have him come back more. Good, yeah. Good, and now collect the canter. Collect a little more. And not too much with the you can either have it or not. I don't want you to have it every stride. Collect more. Good. Okay. Let's walk. Change directions.
I'm actually not on.
I'm not on? Oh. Good. Good. And let's make some, just like maybe a quarter of a circle where you try to really shorten the canter stride and then walk from, like you make it shorter, 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 and walk. Good. And do the same again, collect the canter. And within about a quarter of a circle, like within that quarter of a circle, you're going to go shorter, 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 knees up, and yeah, and walk. And when you walk, keep it, like don't let him run away in the walk. Yeah, and if he does, then halt. So that the next step of going forward again is more because you ask him from your legs. So like halt, and now kick a little bit and say just the hind legs. That's right, that's what he needs. Come on, kick. Okay. That's right. Yep, so he needs to learn in that moment to go more, like start that transition more from the hind leg. So he's had some Alfredo work, he knows a little piaffe, he knows how to do that. He's not, yeah, that's it. And now walk. Yeah. And canter. That's it. Good. Good. Yep. And walk on. Good. And just keep it. I mean, you can see that, you know, and it's true, some horses are going to get more supple when they have more contact. And some horses can get more like tense if there isn't enough. This direction, tend to ride him a bit straighter. Good. And just then collect and balance him enough that if you were to ask him to stretch a bit more down, he would without going faster. It's just a really fine line, just a little difference in, you know, whether he's really reaching into your hand in the way that you like, but you know if you gave the rein he would keep stretching down, or if he's in the rein, you know, very politely. It's still a beautiful canter. He's good behind, he has nice balance, good rhythm. There's just a little tension in it that looks like it's a little too dependent on you holding him together, just a little bit. Doesn't quite look confident enough, supple enough in his back. That if you change the flexion to the left or to the right and then kind of let go of him, like could he handle that? Would that worry him? Could you get him just a little more supple in his back? Yeah, and let's collect. Yeah, so that's plenty of power there. And if you ask for either like a little squiggly line sort of difference, if you just flex him once to the right, once to the left, and then feel that if he would just, if anything, just stretch the top line a little bit, but not away. If he does get too quick, then bring him back onto his hind legs a little bit again. And then just that little bit of right flexion, left flexion, and reach. And that's not because his neck looks tight, it's just to make sure that he can handle like the variation, that his back is supple enough and he's not tense and relying too much on your really good stillness. I mean, so how much collection do you ask of him in canter? Like, do you get to this level of pushing him for it? You do. Okay.
Even though I've been like a working girl.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, canter again. this up. And try that one again. Yeah, so like then just do a very small squiggly line. So he gets a little, he braces his neck a little bit, he braces his back, and you know, I want him to keep stepping into contact. But if you feel him bracing, then make sure that if it's a little strong, at least it's more rubbery. Well done. Good. Good. A little bit lower in the neck. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, still a little bit lower. So I get the impression that if he goes pull the highest point nose on the vertical, which is what the textbook says for the show ring, he's too tight in his back. Yeah. So if he has to go a little lower, that's fine. And even when it was just a trot warm up and he was being very obedient, he's just a little too high in the neck. So he needs to get longer in the top line. If it means that he's behind the vertical while he works out the shape of his low back and more suppleness through his top line, then he's behind the vertical. It's not that we're going to say, hey, pull his nose down and in to try to get it back up. But if he becomes more really accepting the contact and doesn't get tense from a stronger connection, then I have a feeling it might be a little behind the vertical snap. Good. Flex him to the inside. Flex them to the outside. Yep, and shorter strides again. That's it. Flex them to the outside. Him deeper. So when he struggles, really work, like stay really plugged in and stay with him to keep him deeper when he struggles and he gets too tense. Yep. So would you agree if I said, like, in those moments he needs you to keep the pressure on? Yeah?
That's what I feel like I should maybe put back in there. Like go ahead and suck back in there rather than...
Sucking back into the canter?
Yeah.
Kind of takes your pelvis and pulls it toward the, kind of pulls it over your thigh. Or if it's you saying that you really want to keep your leg longer, I don't know you well enough to know why that's happening. But try to keep your knee more up. Yeah, because I want him to stay in front of your leg and I want him to stay active from your lower leg, but I don't want him to run through you in a way that pulls your pelvis over your thigh. So I want him to be like balanced and coming back, collected. Good. Yep, that round. That round. Yep. Yeah. So let's just see what you understand about squiggly line. If you just in the walk again for a minute. Can I just see you do a squiggly line? Do you know what that is? Okay. Just see you do one in the walk. Good. So what I want to see, what I was wondering about a little bit there, and wasn't totally sure if the squiggly line that you use, if it makes him feel like you're trying to get like the corridor that he's going down to get it wider, or if you're getting it a little too narrow. And I still think you could. I think you're using it a little bit too narrow. Or that he's thinking there, like he doesn't have enough space in the corridor, if you can say it that way. So it's the squiggly line, if you steer him to the right, clearly enough that his balance really changes and he really goes that way, and then you steer him left, you really want him to come that way and go to the left side. His nose will come left first, and then really get his shoulder to come too. Yeah, and then to the right. So, he looks kind of like a perfectionist to me, and he's a little too careful about his balance, and he's a little too careful about things, and squiggly line can also make him feel like he can move it around more. Yeah, and really come left. More left. Yes. And then really come right. And then really come left again. And the squiggly line, the idea is also that it really is just about how you use the inside rein. So it's not a big picture, it's not a complicated picture, it's really just singles out the inside rein. So I want to see the left turn be because he feels your left rein. Whereas you could also probably not use your rein at all and still turn your horse left, because you're sophisticated enough with your age that you can do that. But this is really to make it so that it is the rein that turns him very directly. Yeah, and I still want to see it more from the left. There. Yeah, I want it to be from the left rein. Yes. And then from the right rein. Yes. And the way that's putting him just a little deeper, I also think it's going to benefit me when he's in trot and canter. And you know, so you haven't used the rein with the intention of pulling his nose in, but it does kind of release the top line, yes, and it lets him give up some tension in his back, and it shows him just a different quality in how he responds to the rein. I think it's going to make a difference when you have him going in with more power, that he can do that also in trot and canter, that much from the rein. Good. Okay, so let's canter again and see if you can make left rein. Yes, and turn him right from the right rein. Yep. So it's just a specific exercise, and that really good. Turn from the inside rein. I think this connection through his back is better. Good, knee up. That's okay. Yep. Turn him a little bit. Yes. Yeah, and just when it's a squiggly line, just make sure that you know, maybe you already do, that you know, it's not to take the neck left or right and have his body stay the same. It's to steer the whole horse. Turn left. There. Turn right. Yep, turn left. Collect. Don't let him run. That's it. Very good. Collect. Yeah, and let's walk, and then just once come around the right lead again, and just see the squiggly line in the right lead canter. Okay. And you are not very obvious. You know, maybe you're ever so slightly an indirect rein user. You know, it's not very obvious, but I think you're just a little, narrowing him. So I think the squiggly line makes me really think about confirming in you that you really are trying to keep him, yes, that the inside aids don't crowd him, the outside aids don't push across or toward his midline too much, but that you keep your midline really nice and lined up over his middle third, so that there's always space between the right side of him and the left side of him, and you don't crowd that space. Good. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. And it does really work on lateral stabilization. Like every turn you make, he has to really think about left-right stabilization in his hips, his whole hindquarter. And he has to keep being aware of them. They don't ever be a surprise to him. Good. Collect, knees up. Okay, yeah. And turn him left. Good. Yeah, good. So that was nice also there in that corner. He could really come a bit more up and back onto his hind legs and shorten the strides. And he looked very different in his back when he did intend to do it. Turn left. Turns really clear. So right now you're either going to be in one turn or the other, but not with the right rein. So that time you try to turn left with your right aids. Okay, so it is a different moment, it's a different exercise, it's a different. Yeah. Okay. Let's let him walk again. Good. So when you do think about, you know, another exercise is being able to turn your horse from your outside aids. it's also required, and it's just, but it's another subject.